It's cleaned up pretty nice. I'll do just a little bit more. I put a little WD on there. I'm just hand feeding this. I think we'll call that good. You know, if the cylinder's a little longer, won't matter, you know. And actually in my drawings, in my modeling, the cylinder could be a little bit longer. It won't hurt. It gives you a little more clearance with the nut that's on the end of the piston rod. Alright, I have a number 4 size Bokum boring bar on, and I'm at 7 on 26, and I need to be 750, so I only have about 24 thousandths to take off, not much. So I'm going to do one cut as a calibration cut, and then we'll bore it. Alright, I had a little trouble with the Bokum bar I was using, and it rubbed, and I still have enough here to change bars, so I put in my carbide here. I put in this carbide bar, and this is a 5/8 solid carbide bar with an insert, of course, and I just made a skim cut on it, and that's a beautiful finish. So I'm going to finish this off with that. I'm going to measure in the middle, roughly, and go with that measurement. 740 and 9/10, so we'll call it 741. And we need to take off 9. So that's going to be 4.5 on my dial. Yeah, I went exactly 4.5. We'll see how that goes. Now I'm just going to push on that so it doesn't drag. Oh, that's the kind of finish you want. A reamer won't even give you a finish like that. And I'm right at 748. 3.5, I should say 3.5 and 2.5. So I'm just going to take a spring pass, I think. I have the brass cylinder in here, and I think I'm pretty good on the alignment. I'm at half a thou, maybe less, inside, and let's see what we're at here, and about a half a thou out here even. So I think we're good enough. Now, this one was very hard to get aligned. Took me a lot of work. to get this aligned. As you can see in here, I have 2 pieces of hard brass and an aluminum rod so it can pivot. Now on the other side I have an aluminum rod. This is just 1/4 inch aluminum, soft aluminum rod, and that's so I could get it pivot enough back and forth. And I'm grabbing, this is down on the cylinder body, not on the flanges. I just could not do these here on the flanges at all and get it aligned. Then I have some hard copper in here and over a piece of copper over here. I tell you, for copper soft pieces, if you need them, find some scrap copper pipe, cut a chunk off. This is 3/4 pipe, I think, or 1 inch, 3/4 probably. Cut a piece the length of the pipe, the width you want, and then just flatten it out. Pound it flat. It works tremendously well, and a lot of people have scrap copper pipe laying around, and if you could find a piece of scrap, that's all I use is some scrap. Of course, I had some scrap left over 30 years ago when I built my house, so I still have it. And it's coming in handy for all this stuff. And I also have some bigger ones. This is about 1 1/8 wide here. I just a larger piece of pipe and just pound it flat. And if it sticks out a little bit when you face off, who cares? You just, you know, you might you'll just skim the edge of the copper and you won't hurt anything. So we're aligned, and we'll have to pull that pin out of there, but I have to grab it with something. And we're going to do the same thing. We're gonna drill it, bore it, and I'm going to ream these also. I found it. I didn't think I really had a 3/4 reamer, but I do, and I'm going to ream them. That's what they call for. So we'll ream them and get a nice straight hole. I had a little taper on the other one, and I think I've removed pretty much all the taper because I reamed the other one also, and we'll be a little straighter. You know, 1/1000 taper in that inch should not really affect too much. I have a 1932nd drill. It was just had the adapter already on it, so that's what I use, and no particular reason. It's just bigger. One other thing I've done though is I've dulled the cutting edges. I've blunted them a little bit with a stone, so it won't have a tendency to grab and pull and jam your drill. The other trick I use is the quill lock. Set your tailstock quill a little bit snug, so when you're feeding it you can feel that pressure, and that removes the backlash. It helps control the backlash. It doesn't remove it really, but it helps control that backlash so that the drill, if it does want to grab a little, it won't pull and grab real hard. And you just kind of feather this a little bit, and this really helps a lot. Back end, I'm getting 750, and out here 749.3, so about 1/1000 roughly over the length. I think I'm just going to leave this one alone. I don't think I'm going to ream it. This surface finish is way better than the reamer is going to leave. That reamer I have is not the best, so I think I'm just going to leave this one alone. Of course, it's a little, this is a tight end, so actually the other end might be a little fine. Well, we'll see after we get it out. Of course, I took it out and didn't face it, but I'll just face it when it's on the mandrel, because that's what I was going to do the other end anyway. I don't know if you can see the surface finish in there, but the surface finish is excellent. That's why I don't want to ream it if I don't have to. Let's see if we can slip it on the other direction. Now we got a burr. I might have to deburr that first. There, I took that burr off on this end, and now that slips up on there. Well, I think I'm going to have to stick the reamer in there. I didn't like how these bores came out since I did ream them, and I probably should never reamed them, but so I decided to lap them. So I made a internal or ID lap, and what I'm using is this is a 9/16 arbor, you know, to turn between centers, and they're tapered. About, let's see, this one, I measured this is about 2.5 to 3 thousandths over the 5.5 inches or so. And so what I did is I took a piece of 3/4 aluminum, bored it out to 9/16, and then I drilled it out, and then I bored it, and using a small boring bar, they flex a little bit. And it cut a real nice taper on the inside with that flex, and I was counting on that flex, so that the taper is almost identical to this taper, and that causes the lap to expand pretty evenly, the whole length. And then what I did is I cut a right hand and a left hand groove at 2 threads per inch. So it's a nice core. It's like, I mean, I just did it like cutting a thread, and I cut a right hand and then I cut a left hand. And what I did is I shifted at 180 degrees in my chuck when I cut the left hand. So I cut the right hand, I shifted it 180 degrees, then I cut the left hand, and that's why I get this nice intersecting pattern. And then I just put it in the mill, and I ran a slitting saw through there to slice it. And as I move it down the arbor, it expands, it gets bigger. Now this one, I did the aluminum one already. This came out beautiful, which within, as far as for me measuring with a telescopic gauge, I'm within 2/10 as far as parallel, or I should say with no taper, 2/10 of taper over about 1 5/8 inches. So these came out really, really nice, and it's round within a couple tenths, measuring in 3 directions. So that I'm really happy with this. This has just came out beautiful. So now I'm going to do the. Now this came out about 2 thousandths over on the target of 750. Now this one's a lot better. This is the brass one. Now this came out a lot better. The surface finish isn't as nice as it ought to be, but right now I haven't lapped it yet. But the sizing is 750 point and a couple tenths. It's nice and straight. It's consistent. So, but I'm going to lap it just to get the surface finish. And I doubt if I'll even remove I'll probably remove maybe a 1/2 thousandth, not very much, just enough to get the surface finish is real nice. Plus it will be nice and straight still. So I have just fine clover compound on here. I'm not going to do. I only have fine and coarse, so I'm just going to do I'm just doing the fine, and it didn't take me very long to do aluminum. It's nice and soft, and this was a little harder, but this is nice and soft, so it holds abrasive. And just going nice and slow. Let me slip this on first. And I run it off about half the cylinder length. I run off the end. And take a look at this, see how we're doing. I can still see some machining marks here, but yeah, but it's way smoother than it was. But I can see some marks, but I can't feel them. So I'm gonna wipe this down a little bit, and you can see that a little bit better, those grooves. And I went in about 20. I think about 22 thousandths, 23 thousandths on the depth of those grooves. Put some new abrasive on. And I'm adding a little WD-40 to that, just to give a little bit of lubricant action. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap this a little tighter. So all I'm going to do is tap this down a little bit more on this manual, and it will expand it. All right, I tapped this a little more. Not too much, but just maybe a 1/4 of an inch, a little less, not very much. But I definitely feel it's tighter here. Now the light looks a little blue. I don't know why. I'm using LEDs and I don't know. Anyway, it's pretty good. Look, pretty good. Anyway, I'm done lapping, and it's very, very smooth. There's a couple little, I mean, a few lines from the machining still in there, barely though, but it's very, very smooth. And I'm going to measure it here. And we'll see how we came out. I'll measure it in 2 directions on each end here. We'll see what they are. So 751 and we'll call it 5/10. We'll turn it. Oh, I should have hold it so you guys could see that. Let's see, I think I'm about 751 and 6/7, so a couple tenths. To the other end. $751 and 6. $751 and 4. So we're talking just a couple tenths on roundness, and taper is almost 1 or 2 tenths. So I'm really happy with that. This one came out about the same way. So hey, the lapping thing really worked out. This needs to be cleaned a little more, but I'll get those really clean. That would be good. And I just need to put, now I'm going to put them on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them on the mandrel. This is a 3/4 mandrel, and they'll go on there, and we'll turn it between centers and clean up the 2 ends, both ends on this one, and just the 1 end on this one probably. So we get them nice and all square and concentric with the bore. Now here's the lap. This is just a 9/16, you know, tapered arbor for turning between centers. And I just made the lap to fit that. Comes on from this end. And you just, as you know, it's tight there, you know, and as I push it up on there, it expands. Now, I just used a piece of 3/4 aluminum stock, and I had to make it round, so I had to take a few thousandths off. That's why it was so far down here, because I'm trying to make a 3/4 bore, and that's why I had to really push it clear down here to get it to be big enough to lap that to the final dimensions. But I mean, that's okay. Otherwise I couldn't get it started either, you know, if it's too big. So I made it just big enough so I could get it started in there. And now, of course, taking it off, it's nice and easy. But pretty simple to make, and it really actually worked very well. Very happy with that. I never made one before, and this worked. Doing it this way, it worked out really well. Well, thank you guys. Thanks for watching. The next video we'll just continue on, and we'll get these turned up, and we'll do it between center turning, and then we'll move on to getting these milled and getting the holes in them.